Greetings, fellow Minecraft players. Join me, the abandoned villager, in an adventure as we learn to survive in new worlds and explore the mechanics of the game. The player will enter into the world with nothing and should begin by cutting down trees to obtain oak logs. The player should press the E key to begin crafting and should then click on the green book to open the crafting menu. The oak logs should be converted into planks. At this point, the player may find saplings, which can be planted to grow more trees in the future. Once the oak logs are crafted, the player should build a crafting table, which will allow the player to craft tools such as wooden pickaxes, axes, and shovels. Apples may also fall from the trees, which can be eaten or combined with gold to make golden apples. Once the player has crafted tools, the player will require a rudimentary home to spend the nights until they can craft a bed. Players can collect dirt and build a room to protect themselves during the night. The player can also choose to dig into the world and create a room for themselves underground. At this point, the player should use the crafting table to craft a furnace. By placing logs into the top slot and planks into the bottom slot, the player will be able to make charcoal. Charcoal can be combined with sticks to make torches, which should be placed inside the player's room and in the stairway to prevent monsters from spawning inside. Next, the player should build a room around the stairway which leads to the player's main room. This is to prevent monsters from going down the stairway at night. Cobblestone slabs should be placed on top to prevent phantoms from spawning and attacking the player at night if the player is not able to build a bed and sleep within 3 nights. To fully protect the player at night, a door should be created and added to the room above to prevent monsters from finding their way to the stairway. At some point, the player may discover iron whilst mining. After being put through the furnace, iron can be used to make a variety of tools such as pickaxes, buckets, and shears. The player will require at least a stone pickaxe to mine iron. After putting the iron through the furnace, the player would be wise to create shears, a bucket, and a pickaxe which will allow the player to mine any diamonds they may come across. By this point, night has likely fallen. If the player does not already have a bed, the player should remain indoors to avoid monsters such as zombies, spiders, the vile endermen, and creepers, which are not killed when the day breaks. As the player expands their room, they may find chunks of coal. Like charcoal, coal can be used to power furnaces and make torches, campfires, and fire charges. At some point, the player will have to create a bed to allow them to sleep through the night and also serve as a respawn point. The player can either use shears or kill the sheep to get wool, then combine the wool with planks to make a bed. Going forward, the player will want an infinite water source. The player should start by making a 4-block by 4-block square. The corner blocks are not necessary, but the idea is to hold in water. The player should use a bucket to collect the water and bring it back to the blocks. Right-clicking on one of the corners will empty the bucket into the corner, but this will not be an infinite water source yet. The player will have to obtain one more bucket of water and empty it into the top right block opposite from the original bucket of water. The infinite water source has now been created. At some point, the player will have to develop a reliable food source, or they will eventually starve to death. A good choice for players starting out is to create a wheat field. The player will need to harvest wheat seeds by left-clicking on the grass, some of which will produce the necessary seeds. 60 seeds should provide a bountiful harvest. Next, the player will have to craft a hoe to till the ground, so the seeds can be planted. Right-click the ground while the hoe is selected to till the ground, then select the seeds and right-click the ground again to plant them. Once the seeds mature into fully grown wheat, they can be harvested and turned into bread. It is a good idea to dig a trench behind the seeds. Use the infinite water source and a bucket to fill the trench with water, which will cause the seeds to mature into wheat quicker. Blocks such as slabs should be placed over the trench to prevent wheat from falling into it upon being harvested. The yellow wheat is ready to be harvested. If the player can find pumpkins, they should be harvested and turned into seeds. Another trench for water should be dug, and the seeds should be planted. The player should also look for watermelons, which spawn in jungle biomes. As with pumpkins, the watermelons should be turned into seeds and planted. Once the pumpkins and watermelons are ready to be harvested, they can be sold in villages to farmers for emeralds. Animals are also valuable in Minecraft, but they will have to be fenced in. Fences can be crafted using sticks and planks. The fences should be used to create pens in grassy areas, otherwise the animals may despawn. A 9-block by 9-block pen should be sufficient for each type of animal, but an opening should be left in at least one side of each pen for now. Now that our pens are constructed, it is time to gather animals. Animals will follow players who are holding different types of food. Cows and sheep will follow players who are holding wheat. Pigs will follow players who are holding carrots, potatoes, and beetroots. And chickens will follow players who are carrying seeds. Once the animals are in their pens, 2 blocks should be placed one on top of each other in the opening to prevent the animals from escaping. Ladders should be placed on both sides of the blocks to allow the player to enter and exit the pen. Gates can also be used. However, certain NPCs, such as the Wandering Trader, can open the gates and free the animals. Animals can be bred by right-clicking on them, while the player has the same items selected, which causes the animals to follow them. Chickens can also be bred by collecting their eggs. When the player right-clicks while the eggs are selected, the player throws the eggs, and baby chickens will hatch from some of them. By now, the player will have a home, a bed, renewable sources of food and water, and animals, which can be used for food, leather, wool, and more. Of course, there is much more which can be done in Minecraft, but this should be enough to keep the player alive. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video was helpful.